Greetings, my peeps, and welcome to the All Things Basketball Podcast with your boy GD. In this episode, I'll finish up my Week 15 recap, covering Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, all the games, and a little bit of controversy on a Saturday game. Joel Embiid goes off, fines for a few players as well, and we'll look at the week ahead with all the All-Star Reserve news and also WNBA free agency as well to talk about. So just sit back, relax, and enjoy the show, folks. Okay, guys, so we are back. We're going to finish up Week 15, the recap, of course. Got Friday, Saturday, and Sunday left to go over, all the news, all the highlights, and so forth. So let us not delay. Let's get right into it. So Friday, you had 5 games, but we'll get to the news part of it first. So let's start with a somber note, and then we'll move from there. The NBA family mourns the senseless passing of Tyre Nichols, a 29-year-old young man, at the hands of 5 Memphis police officers, part of a special unit, Scorpion unit. It was 5 black cops that was there. And as news trickles down, they weren't alone in all this. So it's senseless. It's beyond horrible. There's a 67-minute video that's out there that just shows how horrific this was. So the NBA family mourns this. In fact, the Players Association, they put out statements. The Memphis Grizzlies, of course, the home of where this took place, they had statements, as well as the Minnesota Timberwolves. So we will get to all of those statements. All right, so this is the statement by the Players Association. Our players mourn the loss of Tyre Nichols and extend our deepest sympathies and condolences to the Nichols family during this difficult time. Our hearts go out to the entire Memphis community as they are processing and dealing with this horrible tragedy. And we stand by the rightful arrest of all officers involved. Such aggressive policing and excessive force illustrates the continued need for accountability in the justice system. We will continue to monitor the investigation and legal proceedings in search of justice for Tyre and his family. And that's from the NBA Players Association. Next statement is from the Memphis Grizzlies organization. We are distraught to find ourselves dealing with a needless loss of life due to police brutality, and this time it was one of Memphis's own. We're thinking of the Nichols family and friends, and share the pain being felt throughout our community. So let's support each other and respect how our fellow Memphians are coping. We have faith in this city and our power to heal. To the Nichols family and friends, we offer our deepest sympathies and condolences for your loss, with the hashtag Justice for Tyre. And that's from the Memphis Grizzlies. And then one last statement I'll read from the Minnesota Timberwolves. Actually, the Minnesota organization as a whole. The Minnesota Timberwolves and Lynx are deeply saddened by the tragic killing of Tyre Nichols. We extend our thoughts and heartfelt sympathies to Tyre's family, friends, loved ones, the Memphis community, and communities across the country during this difficult time. So that's from the Minnesota organization. So So NBA, of course, always with an eye on social justice. So, and as well as here, I send my condolences to the Nichols family for all that they're going through. The friends of Tyre, the loved ones as well, in the Memphis, the whole community there. So, it's rough when you have to deal with these sort of things, but we have hope that we can get some laws passed and some things done. So, with that said, let us turn to other news. Luka Doncic, he's day to day with that ankle sprain. He suffered that in the Thursday game against the Phoenix Suns, so he's going to be day to day. So he'll probably sit a couple of games, but probably won't be too long, I would think. Kevin Durant rejoins NBA Hoopervision. NBA Hoopervision is a live stream that's on the NBA League Pass. So what they do, they'll do simulcasts of games being played. So it's him there along with former NBA player Quentin Richardson. So, and they're doing that for the Cleveland Oklahoma City game. So KD giving his insight and expertise, I guess, as the game is being played. So, what else is he doing? He's not playing in the games right now, so he might as well. But nonetheless, so that's the deal with that. Now, NBA fines. Joel Embiid fined $25,000 for his celebratory obscene gesture late in the fourth quarter of the Brooklyn Philly game. So, for those who want to know what the gesture was, go on YouTube and take a look for yourself. So, but Joel Embiid, $25,000 lighter in the pocket. And Steph Curry, I talked about him throwing his mouthpiece. He was fined $25,000 for that throwing of the mouthpiece. But oh, by the way, this is his third time in his career doing such a thing, which he did in a Golden State Memphis game, a game that they actually won. So he was ticked off. The ball wasn't passed to him; it was given to someone else. So in frustration, he throws his mouthpiece. So what can you do, guys? That's the way it happens. Anyway, so he too, $25,000 lighter because of it. All right, so let's talk about the games. There was only 5, so we'll talk about most of them, I guess. Milwaukee on the road gets the win, 141 to Indiana's 131. In the game, Giannis leads the way, of course, 41 points, 12 rebounds, 6 assists. And he leads 7 players in double figures there. Myles Turner, 24 points. That's a name we haven't really called as of late. Myles Turner, 24 points, 5 rebounds, 4 blocks for him. So, and actually some bit of good news for him I'll share in a few minutes. Minnesota gets the win, 111 over the Memphis Grizzlies, 100. In a game where they had a moment of silence, in response to, what went on in Memphis with Tyre Nichols. So they had a moment of silence there in that game. But Minnesota gets the win there in a game that was in Minnesota, by the way. Anthony Edwards, you know what, guys? You can make a case for him being player of the week. 25 points, 7 rebounds, 7 assists for him. And then in the loss, Ja Morant with a triple-double actually in the loss. 27 points, 11 assists, and 10 rebounds for Ja Morant. OKC gets the win over Cleveland, 112-100, in a game where KD does the Hoopervision thing for that game. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander leads the way with 35 points, 8 assists, 5 rebounds, 2 steals. And then the loss for Cleveland, Darius Garland, 31 points, 13 assists, and 4 steals. Evan Mobley, 23 points, 11 rebounds, and 2 blocks in that game. So, then the last game I'll touch on for that Friday, Golden State getting the win over Toronto, 129-117. Steph Curry comes back in a big way there. 35 points, 11 assists, 7 rebounds, 2 steals in the game. Klay Thompson, 29 points, 8 rebounds. Amongst the 29, 6 three-pointers. And then in the loss, Fred VanVleet, 28 points, of those 5 threes included. 10 assists, 4 rebounds for him. And then Scotty Barnes with 24 points, 6 rebounds, 5 assists, and 2 blocks for him. In a game where OG Anunoby, I'm talking about him a few times, he actually sprains his wrist in the first quarter of that game. So he'll be out for, seems like for a little while. So, but Golden State gets the win. Let's move on to Saturday. Saturday to me was really like the rivalry day, with a lot of rivalry games that day. In fact, they played a 11-game slate on Saturday. So, but let's talk about some news first. Myles Turner, I just talked about him. Good news for him. He signs a 2-year extension at $60 million. So, $30 million for the next 2 seasons after this. So, this kind of kills the Myles Turner trade deadline rumors. So, seems Indiana has him locked in for the next couple of years. So kudos to Myles Turner for getting that done. And then Miami fined $25,000 for failing to comply with league policy governing injury reporting. And this took place in the Miami-Boston game, a game in which, I did mention Butler sat out that game, but he was actually a late scratch in that game with back tightness that he endured during the warm-ups, so he was a late scratch. So much so, a kid had a sign saying how she was there to see him, and of course I shouldn't say of course, but he ended up making it worthwhile for the fans. So, yeah, but Miami Heat fined yet again. Actually, this is at least their second one. I remember reporting on it before. So, my question is, when these teams do it and they have multiple infractions, then you still get the same fine. It doesn't like escalate. Well, what I mean, there's really no deterrent if you're going to keep fining them the same fine over and over. So, my thoughts. But you would think you try and escalate it, especially if a team is a multiple-time offender. But what do I know? Anyway, so that's the deal with the news. So let's talk about the games. Quite a few of these games I did end up watching. The game in which Joel Embiid absolutely destroys Nikola Jokic in a Philly 126-119 win over the Nuggets. I mean, I watched that game. I mean, man. Because you remember, there's a backstory to this kind of rivalry. Joel Embiid has now come up 2 years in a row in second place to the Joker. So, he's got to be in his feelings, man. Thinking that he could at least broke through one of those years. But it wasn't to be so. But get this stat line, man. 47 points, 18 rebounds, 5 assists, 3 steals, 2 blocks. I mean, he absolutely filled up the sheet, man. He was playing like a man possessed. And he carried his team to the win. And mind you, this was a game where Philly was down 73-58 at the half. So they had to rally in that second half to get the win here. So kudos to Philly for getting this win. In the game, the Joker, 24 points, 9 assists, 8 rebounds. So he flirts with a triple-double along with 2 blocks in the game. So let's talk about the other games. Well, a few of the others. Brooklyn beats the Knicks 122-115. The story here, guys, is pretty clear cut from me watching the game. The Nets from 3-point range. 55% they shot from 3-point range. That's your story in a nutshell right there. So, they, of the 43s they took, they knocked in 22. So, Kyrie Irving leading the way with 32 points, 9 assists, 6 rebounds, 2 steals. And amongst those, he had 5 threes in the game. So, and then in the loss for the Knicks, Jalen Brunson, 26 points with 4 assists. R.J. Barrett, 24 points for him and 6 rebounds. So, to me, for the Knicks, I like to see Jalen Brunson's assist total higher. When it's higher, then I like their chances better. Once it's like 5 and below, then I'm like, yeah, he's doing a lot to keep this team afloat, man. So, yeah, but in any event, Brooklyn gets the win here, much to the chagrin of Knicks fans like myself. So, what can you do? Let's move on. Minnesota, I've been talking about this guy all week. Minnesota 117 and Sacramento 110. Anthony Edwards, man, I keep calling his name out. 34 points, and he has 5 threes among that. 10 rebounds, 6 assists, 2 steals. So the kid's had a heck of a week, man. And, the more he plays, the more I'm convinced you may have to squeeze him into the All-Star game some kind of way. It's going to be hard with all those guards, but the guy's been balling. D'Angelo Russell, 25 points for him amongst those 7 threes and 6 assists. And on the losing side, De'Aaron Fox, 29 points with 6 assists. Domantas Sabonis, 23 points, 10 rebounds, 5 assists for him. So, Phoenix on the road gets the win over the Spurs in overtime, 128-118. CP3 has a fine game, 31 points, 11 assists, 7 rebounds, 2 blocks. Mikal Bridges, 25 points for him with 4 assists. And then in the loss, Keldon Johnson continues his outstanding play, 34 points with 5 assists. Jeremy Sochan, the rookie, 30 points, 8 rebounds, and 5 assists. So the rookie Sochan is starting to catch fire a little bit. So the kid is starting, he got the funky hair there. So, but the kid can play, man. The kid can play. So I'll be interested to see how he does, especially once the trade deadline dust settles. So he's one to keep an eye on, guys. And then the last game of the night, Boston getting the win over the Lakers, 125-121 in overtime. A game in which LeBron got fouled on a layup to end regulations, but it wasn't called. The foul wasn't called. So they're making a big thing of, the referee being the games in which he referees. The Celtics are 36-2, so it's a bit eye-opening there. Let's put it that way. So with that said, Jaylen Brown, 37 points and 9 rebounds. Jason Tatum, 30 points, 11 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 steals. And leading the way for the Lakers, of course, the 20-year vet LeBron, 41 points, of which he has 6 threes, 9 rebounds, 8 assists. Still flirting with that triple-double. So that is your Saturday slate, guys. Let's talk about Sunday. 4 games on the schedule, so we'll talk about pretty much most of them. We'll see. In light of what happened between Boston and LA, the referees union says that LeBron was indeed fouled on the last play of regulation in the Lakers-Boston game. So the referee union agrees that LeBron was indeed fouled, yet it wasn't called. So I'm sure this doesn't do LeBron any favors, but at least they came out to support the fact that he was indeed fouled. So for what it's worth. On to the games. Miami loses a tough one to Charlotte, 122-117, in a game where Terry Rozier scores 31 points. Among that, 5 3-pointers, along with 7 assists and 6 rebounds. P.J. Washington with 27 points, 6 rebounds, 5 assists. And then the loss for Miami, Jimmy Butler, 28 points and 7 rebounds. So Miami, who was starting to heat up a bit, loses a bit of a tough one there. So Ja Morant's triple-double, his second straight, in fact. 27 points, 15 assists, 10 rebounds, along with 2 steals. Propels Memphis over Indiana, 112-100. Snapping a 5-game losing streak. So, definitely a well-needed win for the Grizzlies. Jaren Jackson Jr., 28 points, 8 rebounds, and 5 blocks. Man, good gracious. And then in the loss, the rookie Ben Mathurin, 27 points and 8 rebounds. And then the last game, Giannis drops 50 points along with 13 rebounds, 4 assists. He's a guy who can end up being player of the week for the East, as Milwaukee dismantles the Pelicans 135-110. So in a game in which there was no CJ McCollum or Brandon Ingram, just want to manage those guys, as far as injury management and those things. So, all right, guys. So that is it for the Week 15 recap. What's ahead for Week 16? Well, Monday you have the Lakers playing Brooklyn. From what I hear, LeBron's not playing. Anthony Davis not playing. Yet Tuesday they will play at the Garden, though. So they'll face the Knicks at the Garden on TNT. Which goes to tell you guys how important Madison Square Garden is to a lot of these players here, man. People can care less what's going on in Barclay. It's all about the Garden. So take notice. Also on Tuesday, you have Miami facing Cleveland. The Pelicans facing Denver. That's the second of the TNT games, and what should, is a pretty important game in the West, that's for sure. Then Wednesday, you have Portland taking on Memphis. So you got Dame going up against Ja Morant. Ja Morant's been playing hot lately, as is Dame Lillard. Then Wednesday, you got Brooklyn facing the Celtics, and that's on ESPN. Golden State going to Minnesota. That should be an interesting game, especially the way Anthony Edwards is playing, and Golden State needs to string some wins together. Toronto facing Utah, so you got Lauri Markkanen going up against those tall trees over there in Toronto. And then the nightcap for ESPN, Atlanta going to Phoenix to face the Suns. So you got the Trae Young, DeJounte Murray backcourt going over there. It would have been a nicer matchup if you had Devin Booker and CP3 going, but it is what it is. So Thursday, you have Memphis facing Cleveland on TNT. So it'll be interesting to see how that game goes, especially with no Steven Adams in the middle. So you got Evan Mobley and Jared Allen probably having their way inside. We'll see about that. Miami goes to the Knicks. An important Eastern Conference game there. The Pelicans facing off against Dallas. Of course, big time implications there in the West. Golden State versus the Nuggets. Golden State gets to test themselves against the top team in the West. And then the nightcap for TNT, the Clippers going to Milwaukee, and a tough game there for both teams, actually. So, and that's your nightcap. Friday, only game of note, Phoenix Suns facing the Celtics. So Phoenix still trying to tread water until Devin Booker gets back. So we'll see how it goes there. Saturday slate, you got the Clippers coming to the Garden. So definitely going to be a tough one for the Knicks facing that Clippers team. The Lakers going to New Orleans to face the Pelicans. So Anthony Davis going back where it all started, over there to New Orleans. Miami faces off against Milwaukee. Tough Eastern Conference challenge there. The marquee game for the night, Dallas facing off against Golden State. Now that's a rivalry there. That should have been part of rivalry week, but what do I know? So that's your game on ABC. And then a late game that should be interesting, Atlanta facing off against the Nuggets. And then Sunday, Philly faces New York. Last time Philly came was Christmas, and you know what they did to New York then. So, and then this game is without Mitchell Robinson, so I fear what Joel Embiid does inside. So, the Clippers facing the Pelicans. That should be a good matchup there. And then Denver facing off against Minnesota. So, and then important dates. February 1st, which is the Wednesday. That's when NBA free agency starts. So we get to find out where a lot of players are going. We already know there was the big trade that was made. Jonquel Jones going to the Liberty. So you get a former MVP player there. There's hopes that Stewie will join them. We'll get to see where Breanna Stewart decides to go. Courtney Vandersloot, she's been leaning towards leaving Chicago. Allie Quigley, that's the sharpshooter for Chicago. Get to see where she goes. The McKays, they're both free agents. So Nneka and her sister as well. So we see where they go. Brianna Jones for the Connecticut Sun. I know they want to keep her, so we'll keep an eye on that. Tina Charles, she's going to go where she thinks she's got the best shot to get that chip. So we'll see where she ends up. And Marina Marbury, she's a restricted free agent for the Dallas Wings. So we'll see what happens with her. So, and then the following day, the Thursday, we get to find out who the All-Star reserves are. You saw I made my predictions, so we'll see how many of those come to fruition. So, and then also you'll get to find out about the Rising Stars, who will be among the players for that. Hopefully we'll find out maybe the 3-point contest, maybe the dunk contest, who's in that. Maybe that happens this week. We'll see what happens. So, all right, guys. So it's a lot that's going on. Also, let me make note that February is Black History Month, so I will have four player spotlights lined up for you guys. The first week will be Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, followed by, and that's on February 7th, followed by Oscar Robertson on Valentine's Day, February 14th. John Thompson, a former NBA player, but prominently known as the Georgetown head coach. I will do him on February 21st, do his spotlight then. And then the last person, someone who just retired, in fact, Maya Moore. I'll be doing a spotlight on her. She has a fascinating basketball resume, and what she's done off the court is just off the charts. And I'll have hers for the 28th of February. So that's your lineup as far as the player spotlights. So the recaps, guys, will probably be a little abbreviated since I have the player spotlights to do. But of course, I'll do the coverage of all the All-Star festivities. Of course, the game, of course. I'll break down the reserves once that comes out as well. So a lot happening for the month of February, but definitely want to do those player spotlights. So might be a lot of episodes in the month, guys. So we'll see. We'll just see how it goes down. So in any event, again, if you're satisfied with what you're hearing, write a review. Write a review on my website, allthingsbasketballwithgd.com, or on my YouTube page. Make your comments there. All right, guys? Or any of the platforms I'm on. So, all right. With that said, I am done. So, once again, I thank you for your listenership. I definitely appreciate it. And we'll talk soon. Take care. So, my peeps, if you like what you're listening to, you can go to my website, www.allthingsbasketballwithgd.com. You can also email me at thatsportsdudegd@gmail.com. To support this podcast, you can go to my PayPal, and that email is thatsportsdudegd@gmail.com. Also on my Anchor page, I have a support button there that you can also use to help the podcast. I'm on all the major platforms like Anchor, Spreaker, Google Podcasts, Amazon, SoundCloud, YouTube, Castbox, Radio Public, Podchaser, just to name a few. And also you can find me on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Clubhouse, and Fanbase. So once again, I thank you for listening and supporting this podcast, and take care and be safe.